Alright, so this video we're going to look at finding the equation of a parabola. But before we do, let's take a look at the equations. So the equation of a parabola, we have x squared equals 4py. Well, that's a parabola that's going to either open up or down because the x is squared. And, whether it opens up or down, that's going to be based on what value p is. And then we have one that's going to open either left or right. Y squared equals 4px. See, the y is squared. And whether it opens left or right, that's going to depend on p. Remember, one that opens to the right, p will be positive. One that opens to the left, p will be negative. And same thing up here. If p is positive, it'll open up. If p is negative, it will open down. And then we also have the focus and the directrix. So on one that opens upward, so let's say we have a parabola here. Okay, this would be your focus. Here's your vertex. So your focus, this distance from here to here is p. That's that distance, p. And then p units down would be your directrix. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. See, once we find p, we can get the coordinates of the focus and we can get the directrix. And then same thing over here, except, it's either going to open right or left. So if we look at this, if the focus is here, of course, this distance to here would be p, and then the directrix would be back here, p units. Okay. Now, you know, don't try to memorize. Okay, well, I got to add p to this to get the directrix, or got to add p to this, or subtract p to get the focus. The best thing to do is you're gonna just sketch out the information you're given, and it makes it a lot easier to work. And plus, not all the parabolas are going to be at the vertex is going to be at 0, 0. Sometimes it may not. And so another way to write these, when they're, see here, the vertex is at 0, 0. But if we look at it, x minus h squared equals 4p times y minus k. And then here we would have y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. And the vertex would be hk. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example. All right, so let's take a look at our example here. We've got two examples to work. So we've got 2y squared equals 5x, and x minus 1 equals y plus 5, all of that squared. All right, so let's just go ahead and write down the general form. We've got the y squared, so our formula will be y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. All right, so this is what we have. And the problem we have is 2y squared equals 5x. This is the one we'll work first. All right, so to get it into this form, it's almost there, but not quite. We have a number in front of our squared part. See where the y is squared? We have a number in front, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. So that's going to give us y squared equals 5 halves x. All right, so now we have y squared. Well, here's y minus k squared. Well, all this means is that k is 0, okay? And then here we just have x. We don't have x minus h. So that's telling us that h is 0 also. So that tells us that the vertex is 0, 0. All right? So we've got the vertex. And let's just go ahead and make a sketch of this thing and see what we've got. So I'm going to just draw it right here.
So we've got the vertex is 0, 0. Now the y is squared, okay, and it's positive, okay. So that means this thing is going to open to the right, okay. Now we need to find our directrix and our focus. Well, we know that the directrix is right in here, and then the focus, that's a vertical, the focus is here, and the directrix is a vertical line back here. And both of these distances here are P, okay? The distance from the vertex to the focus, and then the distance from the vertex to the directrix, they're each P. All right, so, well, we've got to find P. Well, if you notice here, 4P is the number in front of our x term. And what do we have in front of our x term? We have 5 halves. So what that tells us is that 4P is equal to 5 halves. And then if I solve for P, that means I'll multiply both sides by 1/4. I get P is 5/8. So there's my P value. All right, so let's think about this. All right, so I need the coordinates for the focus, okay? So we've got the focus. Well, if we look at this, this is the point 0, 0, right? That's 0, 0. All right, so to get from this point to the focus, well, I've got to go what? How many units on the x-axis? Well, 5/8, right? Because P is 5/8. All right, so this point is going to be what? 5/8 on the x-coordinate, and then I didn't move up or down, so the y-coordinate will be 0. And so the focus is 5/8, 0. All right, and then I need the directrix. Okay, so let's get the directrix. Well, that's this line here. Well, what's the distance from here to here? Well, that's what? 5/8. But notice this is the point 0, 0. I'm going to the left 5/8. So this is actually a y value of negative 5/8. That's the y value. Well, let's not write it like that. That might get confusing. So this mark here, this is negative 5/8 on the x-axis. Okay, negative 5/8 on the x-axis. So what would be the equation of this line? Well, we know if we have a vertical line, that's x equals, and what does x equal? Well, that's negative 5/8. And so there's your vertex, your focus, and your directrix. All right, so let's look at the next problem. X minus 1 equals y plus 5 squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and just write down the general formula. So that is y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. All right, so if you notice here, notice how the y part is on the left-hand side, the squared part is on the left, and then the other stuff's over here. Well, over here I got the squared part over here and the other stuff on the left-hand side. It's like they're switched. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this as y plus 5 squared equals x minus 1. Now, it's probably not a big deal if you do this or not. It just helps to make it look like the formula looks. And just remember that a equals b is the same thing as b equals a. It doesn't matter what side you write it on. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get the vertex. So our vertex here, well, and before we do that, let's see how this x minus h is in parentheses. Let's look at that as being in parentheses. And so that means we have a 1 times that in front of the parentheses. That's a 1. We'll use that in a minute to figure out what P is. So, well, H is 1 and K is -5. Okay? All right, so there's our vertex. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of make a little sketch, just a rough sketch. So here's 1, and then we'll put the -5 down here somewhere. Okay? Now, which way does this thing open? Well, the y part's squared, so that means it's either going to open left or right. All right? Well, with P being positive, or the number, what's in front of the parentheses here, that's positive, so that means it's going to open to the right. So it's going to look so it's going to open to the right like this. Okay, and so we know that our focus, that now that we've got the vertex, now our focus is going to be right in here somewhere, and our directrix is going to be a line back here. Okay. All right. So this is our vertex. This is the point 1, -5. Now, what's going to be the coordinates of the focus? Well, we know that the y coordinate is going to be -5 because it's not moving up or down, so it's going to have the same y coordinate as the vertex. So we got to figure out what the x coordinate is. Well, what do we know? We know that this distance from here to here is what? Well, that's P, and then we know the distance from here back to here is P, and I probably didn't draw that right. That's probably going to be back over here somewhere, but all we're doing right now is we're just trying to get a visualization, so it makes it easier for us to find this x coordinate and find this point here. Okay, and I know these distances are way off, but it's just for visualization, just to help us solve the problem. So what we need to do now is we need to figure out what P is. Well, 4P is what's in front of the x minus h. And see how I have the x minus h right here, this part? So that tells me that 4P is equal to 1. So P is equal to 1/4. So that means this distance here is 1/4 and this distance here is 1/4. Okay, so actually this line should be right around in here somewhere. Okay, it should be like right in here. Okay, but oh well. All right, so how am I going to get from here to here on my x coordinate? Well, I'm going to take the 1, which is this point, this value here, and I've got to add 1/4 to it to get my x coordinate. All right, so I've got 1 plus 1/4 is going to be 5/4. So that's the x coordinate. Okay, and then to get from the vertex back to the directrix, I'm going to need to do what? Subtract 1/4 from 1. So 1 minus 1/4, that's going to give me 3/4. So this actually has an x value of 3/4. And I know that should be over here. I know that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get our focus. Well, the coordinates of that is what? 5/4 -5. So there's the coordinates for the focus. And then the directrix, well, that's this line. Okay, so a vertical line is x equal, well, what's x going through? It's going through 3/4. And there's your vertex, focus, and directrix. So I hope the video helped. Check out my other videos. Give me a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.